I was in the middle of all that. Let's get Brett stuff.
Yep.
And it wasn't really me screaming that. It was Craig screaming that.
Well, that's one that did happen. You're right. That's one that actually did happen.
The Brett Favre thing happened.
Yeah.
When that happened, I was like, man, anything can happen. I mean, anything can happen. And that's the amazing thing. And we saw a lot of that last offseason with the quarterbacks in the NFL, whether it be Deshaun Watson ending up in Cleveland of all places, Russell Wilson being traded to Denver, although we kind of felt like where there was smoke there was fire. And I think that there's something about what's going on now. And are the Packers completely exhausted dealing with Aaron Rodgers and all the stuff that Aaron Rodgers brings to the table, other than just being a great football player? I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and he's complicated, as we've heard 1,000 times out of Green Bay. So, I'm not saying that it is happening, but I wouldn't be surprised that it would happen. The Jets are desperate. They're desperate. They want a star in here, and I heard the guys talking again yesterday. Lamar Jackson is not the answer here. Just not. I mean, I don't understand why people don't understand what type of offense Lamar Jackson runs. And how receivers don't really want to play with him. It's not that they don't appreciate him and think that he's a great player. It's just that he is a different type of player. Now, you tell me that Aaron Rodgers is coming here, and you said that, you asked, Elijah Moore and, of course, Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis. Those guys would be ecstatic that he would be coming here.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks we have ever seen. And, of course, he's lost a lot of big games at home in the playoffs, only has the one Super Bowl championship, but he's as talented as anybody who's played the position. But you talked about a couple of different guys who, left last year or got traded last year, whatever it ended up being, big-name quarterbacks. And there were reasons that made sense to me why those guys ended up in different places. Now, the Broncos we talked about as a spot potentially for Aaron Rodgers last year, and that was one of the reasons why Nathaniel Hackett was the coach, because that looked like a team that had everything but a quarterback. And the Seattle Seahawks were not going to give Russell Wilson the extension that they wanted, or he wanted. So you got the Denver Broncos. They need a quarterback. They lose out on Aaron Rodgers. They're desperate to bring somebody in. They end up giving Russell Wilson the extension, and he wanted to go somewhere else because he wasn't going to get the money from there. So all that sort of lined up. You were even saying that before, that he wants an extension. I don't know if the Seahawks are going to give it to him. Deshaun Watson to the Browns, that's an easy one. The Browns gave him the most ridiculous contract in the history of the NFL. Now, those things made sense when we looked at the shrapnel and the rubble after those deals were made. How is Aaron Rodgers going to be on the Jets? Yeah. How is that going to happen? Because he's getting paid more. If he stayed with the Packers, I'm sure he'd get paid the most amount of money, because him moving and everything else, and it just would be crazy if he went to another team. And if he's going to get traded, as Peter King said, it's going to be to an AFC team, and maybe the Jets is the only one that makes sense.
Titans.
Yeah, but I mean, they really don't have any weapons.
Yeah, but
there
I'm just saying the Titans might make sense too.
Okay, but I mean, I just don't see Aaron Rodgers going to
the Raiders, and the Raiders too, by the way.
I don't see him. Right, that would be one that would make a little more sense to me. Devontae Adams, Josh McDaniels, offensive mind, yada yada yada. But I just don't see Aaron Rodgers going, all right, I'm going to end my career in New Jersey at Florham Park and then play
I know,
at
it sounds
MetLife
crazy.
Stadium.
I mean, did you ever think that Brett Favre would do that?
He was a little more desperate and crazy, though. I know that Aaron Rodgers is crazy, but Aaron Rodgers is crazy in the I'm going to retire and become a yoga instructor crazy. Brett Favre was I'm going to play. I'm going to go where whoever wants me. I don't care. And I'm going to play, and I'm going to get in your face, and I'm going to do. And he wanted to get to a division rival,
right, to
really stick it to the Packers, and he ended up doing that in 2009, as we know. But those personalities between Favre and Rodgers, even though there's a lot of similarities at the end of their career, I don't see them as the same guy.
I kind of put this whole thing. So you could have had, last year you could have had Deshaun Watson, or you could have had Russell Wilson. Now this year you may be able to get Aaron Rodgers, or you may be able to get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I think that if Lamar ends up going to Atlanta, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I can't see him coming here to the Jets. But I can see Aaron Rodgers potentially coming here. Yes, I could see that.
See, I could also see Lamar Jackson coming here because of the desperation that the Jets have. Now, I know the football reasons. I don't disagree with that, but I do think that the Jets are in a position, plus Joe Douglas's connection to the Baltimore Ravens, I could see them saying, all right, this guy is available now. I'm going to go out there and do it.
Just again, remember it. That's an AFC team to an AFC team.
Yeah.
So that may preclude that just simply because they don't want to see him in the playoffs. They don't want to see him during the regular season. And if they do send him to Atlanta, then, I don't know what their crossover schedule is next year, but it's you're not going to see him every year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a different story if the Baltimore Ravens end up saying that I want him out of the conference. But then again, I mean, the Jets could be the team that ends up offering more than anybody else. And then they have to weigh that whole thing. But from a Jets perspective, I don't think that they've ruled out Lamar Jackson. I think that they've probably considered that. But,
right now, the Jets have the 18th strongest draft power ranking going into this year's draft. So they have only 6 draft picks, 13, 44, 75, and 112. So you take a look at that, and then you compare it to, say, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders have 11 picks, 7, 9, 39, 71. I mean, much more attractive if you really look at it. The Houston Texans also have a ton of draft pick.
He's not
capital.
going to the Texans, though.
I doubt it, but I'm just saying, I'm trying to give you, what it would take to get him. And I don't know if the Jets have exactly what it takes. They don't have a top 10 pick this year because of their modicum of success, and you would end up having to give future picks up as well. So there has to be a lot of things that are going on here. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers said it yesterday. He basically said, look, I'm not going anywhere until I decide what I want to do. And what he wants to do is whether or not he wants to play football. And by the way, if you are getting him, are you getting a guy that is totally committed to really trying to do something special with whatever team acquires him? Now,
I think that for sure. I wouldn't question that at all. I don't think he ends up at another organization and then just mails it in. I mean, that would absolutely shock me. And I think that if his heart wasn't in it and he was done, he wouldn't come back. But to me, all the money that is still out there for him, I don't care how much money he's made in his career, I mean, that's got to be the reason why he comes back.
And then there's, the thought that maybe, how about the Dolphins and all that? Dolphins draft capital this year is virtually non-existent. They are the worst team going into the draft this year in terms of drafting and draft picks because they traded a bunch of it away last year for Tyreek Hill. They have the 52nd, the 78th, 85th, 178th, and 240th pick. That's basically bare bones when it comes to a draft capital. I was trying to think, is there any way, you ready for this one?
Sure.
That either Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers could end up with the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys? Well, there's no way that Aaron Rodgers will because of what you just told me about the NFC-AFC thing. I mean, Tom Brady is free to do what he wants at this point, right? So he could go wherever. The Dallas Cowboys.
Are they done with Dak Prescott?
I feel like Jerry Jones is a guy who generally hangs on to people too long, and he's not that impetuous owner, and he's stuck with Jason Garrett for too long, and he kind of hangs on to these guys. So I would be surprised if they were done with Dak Prescott.
There's a potential out. There is a potential out after next year.
Okay.
In Dak's contract, but again, these contracts, who knows what the hell they're worth and how they can get themselves out from underneath it. But Jerry and Stephen Jones were supposed to have a press conference yesterday, and it was canceled.
Yeah, and there also was their radio interviews as well. Same thing. Right. They canceled everything.
What do you think that's all about?
I don't know if it means that they're getting rid of Dak Prescott. I probably think that they're bummed out and wanted to take a day, maybe so they weren't emotional and say stuff that they didn't mean. I don't know. Who knows? But whenever they do speak, that's going to be interesting. Yeah, I would be surprised if that were the case, if they moved on from Dak Prescott.
Why would you be surprised?
Because of what I just said about the Dallas Cowboys. They hung on to Jason Garrett forever when everybody wanted him out of there. And I feel like Jerry Jones is not the guy who makes like those rash, crazy decisions. And I think that he loves Dak. And if you're telling me, like, so you want to go, what's the alternative game that we always do? I don't think that Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers are not going to send Aaron Rodgers to the Dallas Cowboys. No way, no how. Now, Tom Brady going there, it's maybe he would want to, I mean, he's going to play somewhere. There's no doubt about it. But that more of a possibility. But I would have to know that was like a real thing, that Tom Brady wanted to play for the Cowboys.
I'm just telling you, I wonder, I really do, because of what the Dallas Cowboys social media post was this week after the game against San Francisco, and then just thinking about the frustration of Jerry Jones thinking that he had a team, and then unfortunately Dak didn't play well against San Francisco, and you're thinking, they may think, sometimes you have to sit in these rooms, and you have to say to yourself, do we actually have the guy behind center that is going to take us there?
Yeah, no.
Do we have that guy? Now, Dak has been there for a long time, and they know him better than anybody, and I'm sure they do respect him and like him. I'm just wondering, are they realizing that, maybe this is the thing that's not going to get us to where we want to go, and that's a Super Bowl?
Well, Jerry Recco said that Jerry Jones was going to die this offseason, so he probably doesn't really care next year who the quarterback is anyway. So I would think that this is more of a Stephen Jones thing than a Jerry Jones thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Sometimes it just requires something completely out of the blue, because that team has got a really good defense. They have a really good defense. And I think they have Micah Parsons. This is his second year, so they don't have to pay him for another year.
That's right.
And maybe one of those quarterbacks end up going there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting thought for sure. I mean, I really thought I was going to come in
Would
here.
you want Dak Prescott as your Jet quarterback?
Yeah, I'd like him better than Derek Carr. I like him better than Zach Wilson or whoever else you could bring in at that point. Some of these other things. I mean, I would obviously take Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson over him. But you could do worse than Dak Prescott. You really could, especially with the history of the quarterback position with the New York Jets. But I really thought this morning when I said, like, we got to stop this Aaron Rodgers nonsense, it's not going to happen, that you were going to be like, you're absolutely right, it's not going to happen. And then you gave me I don't know, man. I don't know. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So now I got to believe that this is a thing.
Yeah, so, I guess that Aaron Rodgers first has to decide whether or not he wants to play. I guess that's what everybody's waiting with, bated breath to see whether or not he wants to come back and get his $50 million a year.
If you just said, like, the guys at the top of the NFL and in sports that are not East Coast people.
He's not one of them.
He's not one of them.
That's right. What was Brett Favre? Was he an East Coast guy?
No, but you're right. I mean, I know you keep bringing up that example. I just think that they're different.
Deshaun Watson, a Cleveland guy.
But once again, I told you the reason why is because no one else was giving him that contract. That's why. But what do the Jets provide Aaron Rodgers that no one else can? That would be the question.
Well, the other problem that Aaron Rodgers would have is that you're coming to the AFC, and there are already 5 top-end quarterbacks that you're going to be playing against in the AFC, starting with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and, of course, Joe Burrow.
Do you remember this? This was a long time ago with your buddy Dan Marino. So when Dan Marino was done there and had retired with the Dolphins, Denny Green desperately wanted Dan Marino to play one more year with the Minnesota Vikings. And he thought about it, and they really pursued him, and it got close, and then he was like, nah, I'm not going to do it. That's sort of the way that I feel about Aaron Rodgers in this situation, because that's just not the fit. Like, that was not the fit for Dan Marino. The Jets is not the fit for Aaron Rodgers.
I would just say that Danny was coming off of the Achilles and everything. He just wasn't the same player. He just wasn't. I can give you another example. I know that Phil Simms, I think it was Belichick who wanted Phil Simms in Cleveland. After the Giants unceremoniously let him go.
Yeah.
And I think there was a thought where he was going to go, and then thought long and hard of it and said, I just want to go into ESPN and just retire as a Giant.
Yeah. And that's what I think Aaron Rodgers, when thinking of everything, is going to say, I'm either going to play for the Green Bay Packers on this ridiculous contract where I get paid $50 million a year, or I'm going to retire.
Think about Aaron Rodgers. He's made already almost over $300 million.
Yeah. But you've told me many times before, you got to forget about that. You got $50 million next year, you're going to take the $50 million, no matter how much you got.
Listen, that makes total sense to me, but he's such a wild card. Yeah. You don't know. Yeah.